the way these banks have to see the cannabis industry is that it is the most, it's the highest risk for money laundering. I mean, they put it in the same category as weapons manufacturing and other extreme money laundering risk businesses out there. And so what these banks have to do is they essentially have to hire anti-money laundering specialists. They have to have specific audits of the cannabis business. And there's a lot of challenges. A lot of these banks will say, look, we can't even have, a name that's suspicious. If they get a check from, Johnny's sticky green dispensary or whatever, that's going to cause a red flag. And a lot of the times these cannabis businesses unknowingly will cause red flags because of who they're receiving money from. And a significant amount of time these cannabis owners are spending just moving their cash from one bank or financial institution to another. Actually, some of the more successful banking services actually come from credit unions and not banks. They charge a higher fee. They tend to charge a higher fee, but again, they have to go through the same requirements as I just outlined. So this is something that one of the biggest headaches in this whole industry, and it can change at any moment. It can be an executive order. The legislation, the Congress has a few different bills that they've written. It keeps getting bogged out at the Senate level, but there's the States Act, the MORE Act, and I think a couple other bills that have been that have passed the House floor and some have not. But they all essentially start. It seems like the first couple things that are going to happen at a federal level are going to be, one, descheduling cannabis off the controlled substance list, which is right now it's a Schedule 1, which is the most severe schedule. And so it's either going to drop from Schedule 1 down the list or completely off the list, which will allow for medical research, which is, from my mind, one of the biggest tragedies of this industry, the prevention of medical research. To a large degree, but that will likely be one of the first things that happens. And along with that will be allowing financial institutions to work directly with the businesses without the federal uncertainty that is there now. So that's what these banks are working for. And until then, it is an extreme burden both for the banks and the cannabis businesses. And so the way these cannabis businesses they should operate is to prepare themselves for those anti-money laundering requirements that the banks have. And so there's a ton of controls that they can put in place. A lot of them revolve around the inventory controls, because what essentially the agreement is with the federal government and the states is that the federal government said, yeah, states, you can go ahead and operate a legal cannabis business and industry, but you need to take as much precautions as you can to prevent inversion and diversion. So they basically put the burden of the states to prove to the best they can that these businesses are not inverting, so bringing illegal cannabis from the black market into the legal system, and diversion, taking the legal cannabis inventory from the legal system and then diverting it to the black market. And so, again, that's why these inventory controls are in place. And so basically what the banks need to know is that you're meeting all minimum state requirements, and that you're going above and beyond with your inventory controls, and that that what you are presenting in your seed to sale system is matched by your actual inventory. So property risk, like I mentioned here, I got a couple minutes left, so I'm going to go through these next ones pretty quickly. But the property risk is pretty clear, right? There's local perils everywhere, natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, like I said, fires, and so there's a lot of controls out there that business owners should prepare for before one of those natural disasters. And of course, any property owner understands what those risks are: destruction of property, of course, rebuilding, interruption to business, and of course, increased insurance. And then premise risk, like I mentioned before, this is basically slips, trips, and falls. So anybody coming onto your facility, how hazardous is your facility? It's somebody coming on and hurting themselves. This is obviously, again, any property owner should be aware of the premise risk, and because you're going to be liable for those medical expenses and compensation for the person that's harmed on your facility. And of course, if that happens, you're going to get an increased general liability premium.